talking high mineral sea salts today and why they are a heart healthy choice for you. The higher the minerals in your sea salt, the lower the sodium and chloride, which is therefore going to make your salt a heart healthy salt. It's also going to ensure that you get better effects on things like energy production, cholesterol numbers, all these different types of things that people struggle with are mineral imbalance. Just like any machine in the world, we need the right ratios to run it. So we don't just need to take good things, we need to make sure it has the right balance of those things. And if you look at other salts like Redmond and Celtic and other ones that people are using, mostly kosher, Morton's and stuff, they don't have the mineral balance that we do in ours. Theirs is going to be almost non-existent in potassium, and although Celtic has pretty decent numbers on magnesium, it doesn't have the right ratios that we're looking for, and a lot of them have higher calcium, which shuts down the absorption of magnesium if it gets too high. So when we're talking heart healthy and when we're talking the best for your body, we're talking a high mineral sea salt. You can check it out on modernrootslife.com.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Ancient Roots of Life and Wellness podcast. This is episode number 29. Once again, I'm your host, JT. And as always, I got my co-host with me, Josh Truex of Modern Roots Life. What's going on, Josh?
Hey, brother. Nice to see you guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I know what everyone's thinking. JT went out to LA and now he's all Hollywood. He's got the glasses on. Truth be told, I got these glasses shortly after my trip to Florida. So Robbie, who I did that podcast, Robbie on the Record, and she was kind enough to give me these blue light blocking glasses, and I got these different lenses. And so if you guys are interested in these glasses, you can change the shades and stuff. And, you know, you can go with like the yellow, kind of like the Cult of Khan rocks these. But these are kind of like, I don't know, I think they're cool. And, you know, to be honest, I know how people are in the audience, and I know certain people are going to be like, yeah, JT, he's so full of himself, rocking sunglasses inside doing his podcast. But when you stare at screens as long as we do, occasionally you're saying like, I'm getting a headache from staring at these computers. So, and of course, the Ancient Roots of Life and Wellness podcast, we talk about this kind of stuff, about how we do need to protect ourselves against like this technology.
Absolutely. Like even right now, I'm not wearing them, but typically a lot of times now, me and Sarah I have Viva Rays or Viva Sun or Viva Rays, I think it's called. And they're same as what you have there, except for we don't have the dark one. We have dark red for night. We have the orange for the evening, and we have the yellow for the daytime. But sometimes I have the opposite. Like right now with the podcast, I wanted to kind of like be up and alert. And during the day, like I've been on the computer a lot recently because the guys are running the shop and we're starting some things to get me to do more admin stuff and like kind of like help be at like overseeing the stuff now. Praise Abba. But it's allowed me to be on the computer more to get some more stuff caught up. But that comes with some, impact to your eyes. With blue light forms like blurry proteins in your eyes to stop the eye will form those to stop the blue light coming in. That's what cataracts is. So when you wear a blue light blocking set of glasses, when you're on your devices or around these artificial lights, like I have two of them blasting me in the face right now, then it will help to, negate that, and you won't have as much impact from it. You still have it from the sides, unless you want to wear those other ones, which I'm not really down with.
Some goggles.
Yeah, some goggles that go all the way around and stuff. But pretty much you want to block as much of that as you can. It'll help with any kind of cataracts formation, which a lot of people like have parts of and don't even realize. They have like tidbits of it and don't even realize it's there. But when they do cataract surgery, they put a new lens in your eye that blocks 50% of the blue light. So that should tell you right away. I learned that when my mom got her surgery, actually. She was like, yeah, it blocks 50% of the blue light. I'm like, wow, that's such a confirmation that I just got into blue light. But single-handedly, blue light blocking glasses were I would say, the fastest 24-hour response for my sleep I've ever had with anything that I've ever tried. So
okay, so you say you get better sleep when you've been wearing these.
Yeah, because if you follow you like I was saying, there's certain times, like if you can get out and be in the natural sun, middle of the day, if it's not completely covered with stuff in the sky, you know what I mean? And you have like what we think is a real kind of like natural blue coming through with the sun. You would want to get like some of that. That helps, like, especially in the morning, the bright light hitting you in the face will spike cortisol in the morning. When you want low cortisol to go to sleep at night, and spike your cortisol in the morning to get brain function and everything going. But then you want to basically, if you're going to be putting it on here, as the sun starts to dip down, in natural setting, that's the only light that you would have, right? Besides firelight. So if that's going down, then you would put these glasses on, like the yellow ones or the orange ones. The yellow ones would go on for the daytime to kind of block they keep the good blue, but they block the harmful blue, which I think is kind of like a satanic blue in a way, because it's basically like this light doesn't have to be
Not
this
like
way,
the
though.
shirt I'm wearing. It's not a
No,
satanic blue.
no,
It's
no.
obviously a godly blue.
There's like PhDs out there who have shown that like you can take a light bulb and you can either push energy through it or you can pull energy through it. I'm no master of free electrons and all the energy and how it works, but it seems like this blue is like an artificially intense blue, and it could be made to be like a little bit more gentle, and the glasses help with that. They also help you to not feel like as the sun's going down that you're still got, because these lights right here, they're all meant to be solar noon, which is when the sun is directly above you, brightest in the sky during the day. That's what most sunlights or lights in your house are meant to mimic. They have that blue, crystal blue kind of look. The orangish color is the ones that are more like the evening and stuff, and what the blue light blockers make you see throughout the day. And then you do the orange ones, the yellow ones, forgive me. Yellow is daytime, or a slightly tint like JT has before. And then you do the orange ones, which are going to be like evening. You're blocking more of the sun, right? It mimics it. If you look, what do you get when you go outside, like on a beautiful spring or summer day, and the sun is setting and you have the transition?
Yeah, all
not
the
like
colors.
Yeah, it's all orange and red and deep, all those colors, right? And it's very soothing. You can watch that sunset, and it's not just because you're seeing the sun and it's nice and warm and you're chilling outside that you feel better. Like there's actually like chemical reactions happening and stuff. So, but one thing that everybody should understand too with this, 100% of every function in your body is controlled by the light that comes through the central retinal pathway. So the light that goes through your eye controls 100% of everything in the body, and there's nothing else that can say that. So that's a pretty powerful thing when you think about it, that you blocking this light is not just preventing you getting cataracts and being nearsighted or farsighted or any of those things, right? It's actually stopping a bad chemical kind of conversion that's happening in the body, especially when the eye contracts like that. You're shortening like the amount of light that you're getting, so it can really have a big effect on your health. Another thing I just saw is the study that proves that children who sleep with night lights, or this is anybody, we're just big kids, right? Children who sleep with night lights, they like inherently almost always are nearsighted, because the photons make it through the even a tiny nightlight, even the tiniest of nightlight. Yeah, the photons make it.
Is that why I'm nearsighted now?
Dude, all this, I used to sleep with TVs and everything, man. So it's like I imagine that I jacked myself up from doing stuff like that, and because the light goes through your eyes. I mean, anybody who's sitting here go like this, and I look at this light, I still see the beam.
Your eyelids are not going to block out 100% of the light. That's why you can't just sleep in a lit room.
And so think about what's happening. Your eye's closed and it's focusing behind the eyelid, so it would make you nearsighted.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a trip,
yeah. It's
right?
interesting too. You mentioned that about how you have that light. Would you say when light is going through your eyes? What were you saying about how that fills the body?
Yeah. Basically, everything in the body is in some way controlled by the light that's coming through your eyes. So bad light would affect you differently chemically in the body than like the proper light spectrums and things like that. And so, and going to the beach and doing things like this, people are not just happy because they're off work. Like you're in more sunlight, you're grounded to the earth bare feet more than you are normally. You know what I mean? You're in the elements better, and like the earth recharges you with free electron energy from lightning that strikes, and then the positive makes negative, and then it goes into our feet, and negative heals our body, and then basically the sun is like, we're just like kind of really dynamic plants. You know what I mean? Like photosynthesis in plants, we have like an incredible version of that, right?
Well, I was just thinking about when Jesus said that the eyes are the lamps to the soul, and he's saying like that if your eyes are not working properly, how much darkness is in you. Of course, he's talking about spiritually, but I mean, it is interesting that it could be two things could be true at one time. Is that if your eyes are bad, you can't tell the difference between good and evil. So how much darkness is in you when you can't perceive the difference? Like your eyes are supposed to be the lamps, supposed to be able to see in this dark world we live in. But if you don't, you'll be taken over by the darkness. But yeah, these shades are kind of cool too, because if you look at them, like the lenses, you can tell they're they're darker at the top, and of course when you do this, the light is coming down on me, but I can look through kind of, I guess, the least shaded part to kind of see still well. So these lamps are working pretty good, at least today. They are a bit nearsighted, but yeah, but enough about that. So if you guys are interested in these glasses, and I get no benefit from trying to advertise them other than I was given these pair free by Robbie. So maybe I can link them if you guys are interested. These are actually pretty cool because you can change out to regular sunglasses too if you want to take them out to
I
the
don't get
beach and
anything
stuff.
from Viva Rays either. So
Right. Yeah. This is not me.
And-
This is not an advertisement. This was actually just I've had them for a while, and I knew that maybe I was being a little self-conscious that I was like, I know these people are going to say that he's this, he's that because he's wearing them, but they're cool, and I think that they do provide a health benefit, or at least a safety mechanism. Because, gosh, how many podcasts I record these days, and how many times I'm sitting in front of my computer editing either podcasts or short reels. So yeah, I mean, I think it'd be prideful to not do it, knowing it would actually help me. So I'm not going to wear them every time, but I just thought, you know what? Now's a good time to try them.
Indirectly, they love it then because they want you to do more podcasts. So
yeah, right, exactly, right. I can do more. But I was mentioning, so last week, obviously, I was teasing, and then I was going out to Vegas and to Los Angeles to record. And I'm going to get into that later. I'm probably going to actually do a live stream. Of course, by the time you guys see this, I'll have already done the live stream. I'll get more in detail about the ins and outs of the trip. Was an epic trip. But I was flying, of course, you're getting into Vegas, and you guys know how much I love all the post-apocalyptic landscape of the West. And, I'm fascinated with that stuff. And so, of course, I had a great opportunity to, I got to edit the last week's podcast on there. Of course, I think I edited it pretty well because I had nothing but time. I had 5 hours. And then I watched Superman. I watched the new Superman movie, which actually was not horrible, and I'll probably talk about that later.
That's
and then,
good.
so I had about 15 minutes left. So then, of course, I'm just staring out the window. And here's what I saw, Josh. Check this out. So now I think, Josh, this is not the Grand Canyon. It kind of looks like it, but it's probably not as red and colorful. I think what I was looking at, this might be Black Canyon.
Yeah, wait, so you're flying into Vegas?
Yeah, this was probably about, I want to say, I might have been about 15 to 20 minutes before touchdown on the ground.
Yeah, so you're coming from the east.
Mm-hmm. But I think I saw this same. I saw this same thing when I was flying back too. I saw it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Main thing I see in there is that the like lightning strike, kind of like with the fervent heat, where it looks like like when somebody's been struck by lightning, and you can see the webbing of all their veins and the vascular. Look at that all through there. It kind of looks like the bottom of how water settles, but it also looks like when somebody's been struck by lightning. Yeah, right there in the beginning, it's everywhere on the bottom.
Yeah,
there.
so it's I think that's what they call the Lichtenberg figures.
Yeah,
Lichtenberg.
Yep. Isn't it?
Yeah, but that's pretty cool, right? Like Let me see if I can look up pictures.
That's a big one. That's funny.
See, Black Canyon.
You go over the Rockies? You would go over the Rockies. The final 150 miles descending into McCarran, South Rim, and the Western Grand Canyon are often
I guess it could have been
visible.
part of the Grand Canyon, but I mean,
Because you got Lake Mead and Hoover Dam.
but I did not.
Oh, and Black Canyon. Yeah, Black Canyon is one that's Marble Canyon, Peach Springs Canyon, Temple Bar Region, and Valley of Fire State Park.
I think I did see the Valley of Fire too. It's hard
That's
to
my
say,
old
but
stomping ground, but I'm not from. I flew from east to west a lot when I was younger in Vegas, but my later years, most of what I did was going further west to California and stuff. My family would always come see us.
that looks like that looks like the Valley of Fire right there.
Yeah, that's all the red rocks you see all the way up through Vegas, where I lived in basically the base of Red Rock Canyon.
It's hard to say because it does actually look like the Grand Canyon, but the one reason I have my doubts that it is because one, it was pretty close, and for two, I did not see any of the distinct temple rock formations there.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Temple of Isis, the Temple of Shiva, and all those things seem very distinct. I do actually have some pictures of the Grand Canyon when I was there, so we can kind of compare the color of it, but I think that it was different.
What was the one I saw? There it is, Paulo Duro. That's the one that I was seeing on mine. I didn't think you were gonna have a canyon thing too. That's pretty cool seeing that because I mean, I don't remember if, like I'm always familiar with like all the canyon stuff like west and south of Vegas. Not the east of one because I wasn't flying that way very often in the later years. But it looks just like it. They all really run together. And even the one like I saw basically while you're looking that up, I went and saw this train exhibit and one of the things that was there was she was like, it's the second biggest canyon called Palo Duro. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard of that. But it has Giant's Tower in it, which is like Devil's Tower, and a lot of other things. There's a lot of stuff there when it comes to like the whole UFO subject and everything. Yeah, look at that.
I mean, I guess it could be. I mean, because
That's pretty
from
big.
that height, it might not look so red.
That's pretty vast, man. And that's pretty red.
Yeah.
And that looks like how it gets into the western side of that, where it comes up, and that's where the red goes through there and goes all the way up. So
Yeah, the Grand Canyon is sick. You see, well, look how red it looks right there in that picture.
yeah, that's bananas. That's so pretty. These are crazy, man.
See, that's what I was seeing, like that kind of thing. I was looking for something like that. But I guess from that height, I mean, I guess you could, it might be harder to tell. Look at that hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was this?
What's that?
When was this? You're at the Grand Canyon here?
When I got married in Arizona in November 2023. Yeah, see, that's right there. That's the temple, I think, of Isis right there.
Oof, man,
So it could have been, yeah, I guess it could have been part of the rim of it, but yeah, like we didn't get to the kind of the meat of it where everybody goes, like where the visitor center is and everything.
That's yeah, it definitely looks like it.
Could be.
Those temples are the Isis, Shiva, and Buddha, right? Those three in there.
There's more than that. There's actually a Temple of Solomon in there too.
All right, now that's getting a little bit a little bit more in there now to think about that.
Pretty crazy, huh?
Because there was that guy, what was it, the 40s, right? When he went down there and found all the tombs and stuff.
Yeah, I want to say that was J.G. Kincaid, I believe his name was, and it was written about in the Arizona Gazette.
And then
But then the Smithsonian said later, oh no, that wasn't actually real. I mean, that was like, were you guys serious? Like, but they printed 2 articles about that, and I want to say it was, so you have Lake Powell in Utah, and so I forgot Powell's first name, but he's the one who named all the rock formations, the quote unquote rock formations, the melted buildings in the Grand Canyon. He named them all those names about, the Tower of Osiris or something like that. And it's just crazy. I mean, it's
named
insane.
all of those?
Yeah, he's the one who named them. The guy who, I can't remember exactly who Powell was compared to, like, historically, but he's pretty significant. They named Lake Powell after him, and then he got to name all of the rock formations in the Grand Canyon.
That's really, wow, that's a big connection there. I don't know. That's the stuff with especially the fact that like they never let you see the bottom. And when you get down into there, like with people who do have the stuff, or like some people who like fly drones around there or whatever, I think you can see the drones like get taken or whatever. It seems like, I mean, from what people say, you can't have any of that stuff there. You get in trouble or whatever. But the whole bottom rim, when people do actually get the pictures up under there, I mean, it definitely looks like a city was under there, like a full civilization of everything.
It's funny. So again, I was working pretty much the whole time. Other than, well, when I was watching the new Superman movie, I would just consider that research. But I was stuck in the plane, so I had to do something. But the guy I was sitting next to, we didn't speak the whole flight, other than he asked me for a charger cord. But other than that, no, we didn't talk the whole time, except when we got on the runway. I showed him the video. I said, "Hey, did you get a chance to look out the window when we were going over this?" And so he was checking it out, and he was like, "Do you ever think that used to be something?" And I was like, "Do you know who you're talking to? Do you know who JT Follows JC is?" No, I didn't say. Do you know who I am? But that was the funny thing. I was like, "Yeah, absolutely do think that was something." I said, "I have a podcast where we talk about that kind of stuff all the time." And yeah, kind of during the trip, that kind of came up a little bit more than I thought. Like that, we're looking at old world stuff, crazy Tartarian architecture, whatever you want to call it, and then just the rock formations. And these people that I would obviously never expect to have conversation. This is not me talking to other podcasters. This is me just talking to regular people. And yeah, that message that kind of we've been connecting into, and just I guess that thirst for like true history. Like people are like really, I mean, yeah, I think we are just scratching the surface, because so many more people probably are getting on social media. They're checking out TikTok and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, and they're seeing these reels, and they're seeing these very odd pictures of rock formations they've never heard of. And then they're saying, yeah, that doesn't look like wind and rain did that. That looks like a old city.
Yeah.
And so like I know that a lot of people probably people who listen to us, and then probably they don't even know all the people like that in their area, or the people in their close sphere have been starting to like ask those questions. So I feel like that God is priming a lot of people for the little season, or any kind of just exploring the mysteries of all this stuff.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are getting opened up to it in a different way, because random conversations that happen used to seem like they would fizzle out really quickly, maybe like 5 years ago or even 2 or 3 years ago. People would be very resistant to it. And now, in this last like 6 months, it's been pretty interesting to see. One, the amount of content that's being created about these subjects is exploded. Because I think you get more and more people who get hooked on one certain content creator, like somebody like yourself, JT, and then they basically they latch onto that and start sharing a bunch of that content, but they're also a content creator themselves. So you basically spawned this whole other thing there, and then now it's been trickling down for long enough to where it's kind of cool. You can go on, and I get more like natural kind of like things that pop up, and I'm constantly trying to like thumbs up and thumbs down, to get the algorithm as good as you possibly can these days, right? But yeah, it's been a big blessing for certain things, because you can actually have conversations with people or say stuff to people, and they don't want to punch you in the face, like right away. So.
Right. They don't think you're so weird anymore. I think that's the funny thing, is like that, I feel so blessed by God every day now, just being able to do this now and go on these kind of trips and talk to real people who obviously are not followers of mine on any social media app, and just be able to have real conversations, because it wasn't that long ago that I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. So I want to say my very first experience kind of even looking into kind of the meltology topic out west was my first real big TikTok video was the Hoover Dam video. And so because I was concentrating on the Hoover Dam, it's, right over by Las Vegas. And then some people were saying, hey, there's a bunch of Egyptian things in the Grand Canyon. And so it was kind of like the more I started to look into that kind of topic without still looking for meltology, it was just like, yeah, that's really weird that all those rock formations are named after Egyptian gods and things like that. And then you hear the story about, the Arizona Gazette and from like the early 1900s and what they found supposedly in the in the Grand Canyon. And then you find out the Grand Canyon, 90% of it's off limits to the public.
Yeah.
And then this guy's talking about mummies, talking about Hindu type things. And then, so then it was later, it probably wasn't even till I'm at the Grand Canyon in 2023, end of the year. That was before I really started to buy into the little season. I was really open to it then, but it was, I think we went and saw a bunch of stuff in Sedona, and then we went and saw the Grand Canyon, of course, all just throughout Arizona. And it wasn't until I think we got back to the hotel room, the wife and I, and I was looking up, actually, I was on Alpha Talk's YouTube channel, and I was looking at some of his videos he had on meltology. And of course, then I was watching some of his other ones. And that's literally when my wife was talking about believing that Jesus already came back. And I was like, should I have Alpha Talks on my podcast? And she's like, yeah. And that's pretty much how it went. And it was probably the next month I've connected with Alpha Talks, and we had him on the show, and I was convinced at that point. I was like, yeah, everything makes sense. And so really, if I'm truth be told, I knew there was something weird about the western part of America in 2023, mostly, maybe 2022, 2023. But it wasn't until 2024 that I actually made the connections with all of it. So it wasn't really that long ago.
Man, that's really recent. Yeah,
I know, right?
that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of it. I think I always bring up that if I could go back and look, but the Little Season, our detox guide on the website, that's named the Little Season Detox Guide because I'd like really started getting into it. I think that was I changed the name of that like 6 months in, and I feel like that was about less than 4 years ago now, but somewhere around there, like between 3 and 4 years that I've been thinking into it. But there was nothing back then, so I kind of had like this stagnant kind of growth and just doing my own stuff. I was really big into like America's Egypt and the Promised Land and studying like all the Native American different stuff and everything like that. And I'm kind of like we always talk about, I'm like kind of up in the air on like there's a lot of plausibility with different kind of scenarios and kind of what am I saying, like presentations people do with different things like in America, from Madeline saying Alaska to people saying Peru to other people trying to say Africa, different stuff like that. But it's nice now. It's really a big blessing now when you go online and you can actually not only like see podcasts like this, but like you could get into study groups and stuff. Oh, that really makes me think. Before I forget, I wanted to think about this too, if it would be a good thing for everybody, because a lot of people are saying that they love the show, and they feel like when we ask for suggestions and stuff like that, that a lot of people seem like they would want to get more involved in some way. But sometimes those can be like overwhelming. So I told Sarah, my wife today, I was like, hey, babe, like, what if I made just a Word document and then shared a Dropbox link to that? And it was just a Word document that anybody had the link. They could edit it, and you can anonymously it would be the land of one-liners, though. We can't have like somebody coming in with like, hey, I got a 70-page essay on, so.
Yeah, that's not overwhelm the community.
Yeah, but we could make a single page or a single Word document that everybody could go in and edit, be honorable with it, obviously. Be anonymous if you want, or if you wanted, to have your work cited and like give credit and stuff like that, like just put it out there. I mean, we're not like trying to glorify ourselves here, but if somebody keeps doing stuff like more and more, it'd be cool to like, we could contact you or talk to you. Like if you're really getting into stuff that we want to look into also, you could just put your YouTube name or whatever. And then everybody we could pick any subject, any subject that me and JT talk about, keep it close into like that, or anything that's like kind of on your heart. You could put things in there that when we talk about it, that you kind of like provoked a thought in your head and you said, hey, boom, like put this down here. So if that's something you guys would be interested, I just wanted to interject that because I was trying to remember that and I forgot to write it down. But yeah, you just made me remember it. So praise Abba.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it is, but it's crazy to just think. So I've only really been making content for 4 years now. Pretty much like, I think my first TikTok was like around Thanksgiving 2021. And then
I only made Facebook, Instagram, no like family stuff, nothing?
Like I said, I made some videos, but they were really just kind of like little sermonette Bible study videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really and so my first TikTok was like that. I remember I was I kind of had like a God, it was all kind of these godly understandings of things that I made the connections of, was saying my very first video I ever made was something about like that when you first become a Christian, or at least maybe the outside perspective of a Christian is you just have this book and you have this list of things you can't do. And I was like, that's not really like that. Because I was saying, because I coming from like a running background and cycling and training background, I was saying that I liked Paul's examples of like, if you run the race, run to win the prize. And he was saying like with sports, basically, it all requires discipline, but we need like godly discipline, and it's important. And so I thought about it like that God's telling you this is the best way to do things. And through faith, we have more options. We have freedom in Christ. So what's a sin for you might not be a sin for me, but ultimately we're striving for the prize. And so when I compared that to running, when I was really into like running and I was trying to be successful at it, like, could I stay up late and drink? Could I eat like garbage? Yeah, I could, but I stopped doing those things because it was not beneficial. You know what they say is all things are lawful for me, not all things are beneficial. Not everything is going to lead me to that place where I want to be. You know, these things will, you know, you can do some of these things. I'm not saying what you guys can and can't do. That's what I'm saying. This is faith. But when I was really seeking the prize, and of course I was seeking like a temporal prize, I was seeking like a trophy or something, then I said, hey, I will do better if I get more sleep and if I cut out the booze and I try to eat right. So I think that's like the godly training. Like that's the same way, is that our relationship with God will be deterred by some things. It doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's not beneficial to your relationship with God. Anyways, that's a long story, but I just thought that was a good message. That was my very first video. And then the next one was about the crazy statue at the UN, you know, something about that.
Oh,
And
well,
so that's when I really, that's what I probably consider like my first real TikTok. And I think that was December 2021. And then I had a series of that. But I mean, yeah, so like it's only been 4 years. So I mean, like all the stuff that we've kind of talked about since then, sometimes it does feel like a long time, but sometimes it feels like, dang, this has been a whirlwind
yeah, a
of
blur.
things.
Just an absolute blur. It's amazing how fast. I mean, obviously it's December now, and you're just like going. You remember as a kid when you're like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when me and Sarah will sit there and play with the clock and like watch it, I feel like at 1 out of every 5 seconds is missing now. Because and
Well,
it's
that's been something. I think Jay Dreamers talked about that. You know, he's one of these people who actually do believe that the time is accelerating.
it's just, you remember when you get up for school? I remember having the amount of stuff I did before school as a kid was incredible. Like getting up, getting ready, getting food. Some days weren't like that. I feel like when you got older, it was more of a rush because you would sleep in and stuff. But like as a kid, you'd get up and like in the morning, it seemed like it was an eternity. And now my morning is absolutely, I look up and it's noon already. Crazy to me. Like I help do, you know, dishes and different stuff like that, basic things, and help the kids, you know, and stuff with getting the guys going in the shop. And next thing you know, I look up, oh man, finally I can do some emails and do stuff like that. It's already noon. It's just time really seems to have been accelerated. And just regardless if the actual, like the figure of time, if that's true or not, the amount of things that happen inside of that time, like how much transpires in the last 4 years. Like when you talk about it, you think about from the time of 2019 to December 2021, when you first heard about the whole stuff in Wuhan, and it was like, boom,
Yeah.
to when you were podcasting, the amount of kind of flipping you on your head, turning your heart over, kind of things that you experienced and were exposed to during that whole time when the obvious hit the whole world, then and then you think about what that did to you, and then it sets you on a path. But now that I feel like Abba is doing that for a reason. It's like he's the one who's kind of creating the sense of urgency in us more so than before, so we can actually. I mean, who knows? If
Yeah, 100%. That's why I
Yeah.
say that, and that's why I try to give people grace when they got a different view of eschatology than me. Because if I didn't have the view of eschatology I had when I first got on TikTok, maybe I wouldn't have felt having that imminency of the return of Christ. So it's like this time is short. I've got to start now. Like this is the end. And so like yeah, you do have that kind of, you know, being a procrastinator by nature. If you did know, well, you know, it's not a rush for me to get on TikTok now. I don't have to say anything to anybody because it's like if we're in the little season, it's like, well, it could be a long time. You know what I mean? But like when you're seeing all the signs that were coming in 2020, you say, oh, you know, so that's what I mean. So like, even though you're, you know, I believe then now that I was wrong about that, you know, it was again, your why is right. You know what I mean? Like if that's putting that kind of that foot out in faith to go do something because you do feel like the time is short. But I will say this, if people do actually believe in the theory that time is going faster, I suggest you try to get on a treadmill and tell me if it goes any faster. Tell me if tell me if it's any easier. You can ride a bike trainer, you can get on a Stairmaster, and tell me if it goes quick. Because I can tell you what, when I was training for marathons and I was training for, I think I did like a 20-mile run on a treadmill one time, and I did I've done like a 3-hour bike trainer ride. I've done a couple of those. Those are some of the dumbest stuff I've ever done. And that clock goes real slow then. I think
Oh
time
yeah.
starts to slow down when you're doing
Under
something
adrenaline and
when you're
stuff
doing
like
something
that.
that's
Yeah.
not fun. Yeah. But it's like, but it is funny, like to think back when you're like a kid and you're waiting for Christmas, as it's almost Christmas season now. The month of December was a real long month. It was
Yeah.
like the longest month of months, because
Mhm.
every day you're like literally like, oh, one more day to Christmas. But now when you're older and you're like, I don't know, I guess even from my perspective, I felt like things were going faster sometimes too when I was looking forward to the weekends. Or maybe
Yep.
they're looking, maybe it's going faster now because my weekends, I don't have off. Like I'm doing,
Yeah.
like I do more content on the weekends than I do off the weekends. So I'm like, yeah, it just starts to become like just a giant blur now.
Grounding techniques for humility by JT. If you think time is going faster, here's a physical way to humble yourself and bring you back to reality.
Go do those do like a wall sit.
Yeah,
Right? You can
there
do
you
it like
go. Yeah.
you hold a
It's funny
squat.
how adrenaline slows things down. It's like massive intensity, but things do slow down. Like you get into that whoosh. I know it from when I race. Like, basically, we did like sport compact, like racing professionally, like for NHRA, and you get that tunnel kind of thing, and it does feel like. I mean, you're out there, and sometimes you're going like in a 9 second pass in a race car, and it's only 9 seconds of your life, but it's so intense that, and some of these guys now, like when they go in, like the one guy just broke a record. It was like low fives. I can imagine that. Like, you imagine being at a stop, a light, or a sign on the freeway that says exit quarter mile, and you're at 0, and by the time you get there, you're at like 250 miles an hour in 5 seconds. Like, I mean, most humans couldn't handle that. Like even fighter jet pilots like get into those cars that
So
are
they
like top.
pass out because of the G
Yeah,
forces.
yeah, because a top fuel funny car that goes like 3 seconds, when they sit forward after the pass is over, their spine imprint is fully into the seat still, like pressing it in there because how much it moves their spine back from the power.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's kind of
yeah,
scary to think of
but
that.
it actually feels like a long time in a way. Like when you're out there, like you're thinking about the shift, or nowadays it's a lot different in certain ways, but you're thinking about the shift and everything. And you would think it's only 9 seconds or 10 seconds or 11 seconds. It's nothing, but from start to finish. But it really seems like you're out there like, man, like if it's only 9 seconds, most people are like, I don't want to go out there and just like build a thrill. And you're like, and that's over. But it really does feel like a significant amount of time. And then you see like the uncomfortable times feel, when you're in a stressful situation or things like that, whoa, that kind of stuff, woe is me.
Yeah, time goes
Everything's
real slow.
so slow, or if you're in pain, if
Yeah,
you're in pain, heartache, stress, turmoil, all
get
those
the
things,
flu.
got the flu. If you're sick like that, then the time can just, sometimes though, when you're sick, time goes so fast because like people need to get back to work, or,
Oh
like
right,
their
yeah, yeah.
kids or
All the
whatever.
things
And
you're not doing, all the
you're,
things that are piling
mhm.
up.
That's just that perception, because I guess that's how we see ball or we see flat or whatever. It's all perception, right? So it's like there's the perception in the world of
Yeah,
time, or time is. That's why it's amazing when you see, one guy did a really good study in the Torah community when I was in there, and he showed how there's the chronos time, or the two times of Abba, and basically showed there's like, he's in all of everything. So it does show how that's really true when you look at things like that, because how can the same time be interpreted differently? And then how can they set your phones all to a satellite or a floating thing in the sky, and basically,
set the loon.
yeah, they set the time to where everybody's synced up so they can do this stuff like that. And then they tell you the day's 24 hours, but on their calendar for Gregorian, it's 23 hours and 56 minutes. And they don't even lie. Like NASA tells you this openly. It's called a sidereal day. Sidereal. Like, that's messed up. Like a parallel reality that like they give you, and they say it's 365 days. But if you times them by that time, it makes 364 perfectly. Like, that's so messed up that when you take 356 or 365 times 23 hours and 56 minutes, it comes out to 364 perfect days. And then that's the real calendar, is 364, 52 weeks of 7. And
That's interesting. That's interesting. This makes a nice transition to time being added or time being taken away.
perfect.
Because I should have teased this earlier. Of course, if you guys are still with us, you guys will be interested in this. We are going to go dig back into a couple of the Gunnar sections. So Gunnar Heinsohn, in his presentation in Toronto, 2016, he discussed that 700 years were added to the first millennia AD. And I'm going to show a little breakdown. We're going to talk about two specific topics. about the early church buildings. And also, we're going to talk about the Apostle Paul. But before we do that, Josh, why don't you tell us about Modern Roots Life?
Hey guys, Modern Roots Life is our faith-based company. Today, I just really want to talk to you guys about. I'm always talking about how clean it is. It's lab tested. Everything we do is no fillers, no synthetics. We're actually now having our product. We're starting to move it into a larger scale of manufacturing to where we've been shipping every single day now. Basically, times are going much faster. But we're doing some other things so that we can expand the line. I want to carry like more foods and more things you would use in your home, good cookware, stuff like that, so you can trust other things that you need in your life that people are starting to ask questions about, water filters and different things like that. We want to have all the best of the best stuff for you guys to have there so you can buy it without having to think. But today I just want to encourage you guys. It's the time of the season. And this season comes with a lot of people not feeling well, regardless if it's you or people you're around or or yourself and you're around other people. Make sure that this time of year, check out the Herbal Flush. 20 ingredients. It's made by an amazing generational family who does parasite flushes and things like that. It helps to balance all parasites, bacteria, fungus, candida, mucus, and viruses. So check that out. It's done every 4 months. It was the way it was pre-1930. We do it every 2 to 3 times a year. Children do it too. And then we also have the Little Season Detox Guide. So those two right there, I would check it out. And then make sure that you just stay on that regimen because it really will help you. A cayenne a day helps to keep the mucus away, things like that. So love you guys for checking us out, and we appreciate your support.
All right, cool. So I'm going to show a little bit of the Gunnar Heinzen presentation. And of course, Paul and I did a breakdown of this already once, but we're going to focus more on certain sections. Now, I can link the previous podcast where I've done that so you guys can check out, like if you guys want to skip around, that's a good place to do it. But Paul and I we did a big overview of it, so it was harder to kind of like we wanted to go in more detail. So anyways, we're going to focus right now on the early church buildings.
So most of you will now think about Rome, and you think, but Rome has everything. At Rome, you find for every century from 100 to 900, you will find buildings. And this causes me to reenact, in a way, the first-class freshmen that study Christian archaeological history. They are confronted with 2 enigmas, or with 2 miracles. Miracle number 1, Christianity, they are told, is the only major religion in the history of man that had to do without temples, without buildings, without churches for 300 years. Enigma number 1, miracle number 1. Then, eventually, 300 years after Christ, in the 4th century, when they started to build churches, they decided to do this in the style that was 300 years out of date. So they built their churches in the basilica style of the 1st century. This is Old St. Peter, dated to the 4th century. And this is in the same city of Rome, of course, the Basilica Ulpia, built in the late 1st century CE, after Christ. This, of course, is downtown in Rome. It's a very rich building, and this is outside of the Roman walls, so it's a relatively poor building, but you can see, if you look closely enough, that it's more or less the same architecture. Okay, now we move to late antiquity, 4th to 6th century. And here we again find in Rome basilicas with these peculiar round plans. And now you tell me, look, there you have it. You have this in antiquity in Rome, and you have this in late antiquity in Rome. Yes, that's how it is called. But these churches, they are never superimposed on buildings of antiquity. They're sitting in the same village or the same big town, you have to say, in the same plane. They're not distributed like this, but they sit in the same archaeological plane. Richard Krautheimer, the most ingenious scholar who ever put his mind to the problems of Rome, he survived the Holocaust in the United States. He was from Fürth in Germany, like Henry Kissinger. So what he discovered for himself was that in late antiquity, the Christians created a renaissance of antiquity, a perfect renaissance, down to the building materials, down to the roof tiles. And then in the early Middle Ages, 8th to 10th century, there was a second renaissance of the basilica types. And he was so precise that he could show in the 9th century, they imitated ground plans of the 5th century. And in the 8th century, they imitated ground plans of the 4th century. So thus, it looks like a complete and perfect renaissance. But again, all three types of buildings are never found superimposed on each other. So that's why even for Rome, if you look at any particular area of Rome, you never find antiquity, late antiquity, and the early Middle Ages superimposed. You find them like this, side by side. And this is the question I'm just asking. Can we cut out 700 years out of the first millennium? I compare now Rome with Constantinople and Jerusalem. You see, this is antiquity Rome, 1st, 2nd century. This is late antiquity Constantinople, 4th to 5th century. And this again is Jerusalem, 1st to 2nd century. At the first glance, you get the impression this is the Circus Maximus of Rome with the imperial palace. This is Circus Maximus of Constantinople with the imperial palace. Down here, you get the impression, oh, they really try not to fall too much behind the 1st and 2nd century AD. So now we go into Rome, and you see in the
Okay, I think we can stop there. So yeah, so that's really interesting that Gunnar Heinzen, again, if you guys are not familiar with him, he was a German sociologist, historian, researcher. And what his conclusions were always based on the stratigraphy. So the strata. So like if you dig down into the layers, you'll find older stuff and then newer things will be built upon them. But in the city of Rome was his specific example. And later he talks about Constantinople and Jerusalem. These churches were all built at the same level of strata, whether they were built in, I guess, the 4th century to like the mid antiquity, all the way up to late antiquity. They were always built at the same. They were built in the same style at the same strata level. The archaeology can't make sense of it because they're stuck in this certain chronology. But the physical evidence indicates that yes, this stuff was built at the same time. And so he's saying it's the 1st century they were actually built. They built churches right away. And that's why they resemble the same architecture. It wasn't because they were trying to emulate the pagan basilicas. That makes no sense, right? If you're going to go backwards and you're going to emulate pagan temples.
Multiple times. Not just once.
So yeah, so what he was pointing to would be like, so like in the 300s, they start to build the first churches in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. But when they do that, they go and try to emulate the 1st century buildings, pagan basilicas. And so then later, of course, this is what the history says, is they did it again in around the 800s or 900s, probably 700s to 900. Right. They went back and still tried to build an exact same style of the 1st century. You know how insane that is? Like if you were trying to go back and build something 1,000 years ago, that you're trying to emulate something from 1,000 years ago almost, or 700 years ago.
With the same roof tiles and the same paint.
Literally the same shrubs.
Yeah, they check the paint
plants.
And it's like from the paintings and it's the exact same paint, not a like, type of paint or anything, but the exact same paint. And then The strata is the big one because the study of strata is like the layers are not just for that region. It's the strata that would be all over for like each era of the world. They have the strata and he compares all of them. And the thing that was mind blowing for me with him is he checked every one of the sites, I think he said, with that.
Well, I think he said they checked up to 30,000 Roman sites. 30,000.
Yeah, which is like, or more or less like most of them, like in there. And he was in contact, or no, that's what it was. I think it was like he was in contact with like all the people who were going to these places or something like that, or whatever it was, the scientists and stuff like that. Anyways, the extent of research that he did to like come up with what he does, it's why he can simplify the answer for you. He doesn't give you some complex thing that's any person can watch his work and realize if you watch it a couple times, you would really understand what he's trying to say, because he does it with, from everything to the boats of the Vikings and the Romans and different things like that, and showing the separation in the time, but how and the Constantine thing makes a lot more sense, I think, when you take him out of the 300s and put him into the first century too, that he did.
Yeah, it's interesting because that kind of lines up, and I'm going to show. I found a wiki page about the oldest churches in the world, and so we can go kind of look at some of them. So, regardless if you believe the Book of Revelation was written in either the 60s A.D. before the Temple destruction or the 90s, what's interesting is the Geneva Bible that Moon Henry and I kind of went through. We were going through the study notes. I think we have a part 2 coming up soon, but when we went to Revelation chapter 13. Where it talks about the false prophet, they were pointing to this pope named Boniface, and it was mentioning his bishops were all part of this false prophet, I guess, character. So the pope.
Wow.
So in the 1500s, they are saying that there was a pope during this time that John is writing this book. Okay, so just think about that. So you're thinking like the Roman Catholic Church would have been all the way back to the times of the Apostle John.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not me saying that. That's them saying that. So it makes more sense that there is this conversion to Christianity in Rome early. And of course, that makes sense too, because we know that there's all these churches from the epistles and these letters. There are all these Gentile churches. They're popping up everywhere. So if Constantine was an early convert to Christianity, then maybe the church would have had influence on them. And maybe that's part of like maybe the apostasy and the falling away that led to the destruction of everything. You have to have a conversion first, and then you have to have a falling away. And then, maybe the popery is kind of what's really dragging people down, the papacy, the popery.
Yeah,
the popery. Popery. Not the same thing. The papacy, but so let's check this out. So this is interesting. So you can go over here.
It's either the Pope or Muhammad when it comes to the false prophet, because that's the other thing.
Yeah, that's another one that makes me
700 years to take that off, and then it would put Muhammad at that time. That would be very interesting.
So this is over on Wikipedia, the list of the oldest churches, and so it's got them separated by continent over here. Because, of course, this lines up with really Gunner's saying. So this is the first one they show in Africa is in, where's it saying?
356.
Is in Egypt. Right? So it's one in Egypt. Look at the crosses on there. Looking like some serious tech right there, right?
Yeah, seriously. It does look very techish. It's just amazing, the construction and how well it stands. That's awesome.
Yes, this is also in Egypt. A lot of stuff in Egypt here.
Got that
Mosaic
symbolism.
of John the Dwarf. What? I'm going to have to ask Brian about that.
What
does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean at all?
So this one is in Ethiopia. Again, still megalithic domes and Antiquitech on the top. Maybe I should.
Yeah, true.
Maybe I should get out of here so I can show like the dates on some of these. But you have 360. I don't know why it just says 4th century, because obviously 4th century is in the 300s. Maybe they don't know where it's at. Alexandria, late 3rd century. Okay, so they're saying it's a little bit earlier than 300. Yeah, what does it say? Okay, here's about the John the Dwarf. Built by St. John around his tree of obedience, the monastery remained open until the 17th century when it was finally abandoned. Originally, the body of St. John was in a church near modern-day Suez, Egypt, but his disciples moved it to the monastery in 515 AD. Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So he was dead in the 1st century, I guess, we're told. And they moved his body like 400 plus years later to Egypt.
That's wild. That's a really
Yeah, he would have been
story.
so we're told that John would have either died on Patmos or he would have died probably in Ephesus. But then they moved him to Egypt afterwards. Why?
John the Dwarf. That's interesting.
John the Dwarf. I thought he preferred to call himself the beloved apostle, the one that Jesus loved. I always thought that was funny. But Jesus didn't love all of them.
Right. 4th century. I mean,
yes,
really
this is one in Ethiopia. Yeah, this is in Ethiopia. I want to say I kind of scanned the list, and it looks like some of the European ones they were calling earlier, but so I don't know if that lines up correctly with what Gunnar said. But so here's Asia, though. So again, this is really interesting. So this actually says it was built in 239 AD. Look at that building. That's a building. It's a very interesting architectural style.
It's like a mix almost of like that and what they call medieval, like castle-like and stuff, you know?
So this is saying in 240, but that's really not, there ain't a lot left there. So this is late 3rd century. This is in Megiddo in Israel.
Armageddon, Megiddo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what Michael Hauser said. That's Megiddo.
Mm-hmm.
So here's another in Armenia.
Wow.
Look at that.
Crazy.
So that's like one of the first churches they ever built. Look like that.
Great job. Give that guy a star, a bonus.
Yeah. So there's another one. It's a Syriac in Syria. And yeah, the domes, right? The domes and the crosses. Isn't it interesting how it's got that cross that's not just a regular cross? It's like a 3D cross.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's like it's got some kind of other. Yeah, it's like it's a antenna. It's like a Spanish church right there. It's in Turkey though. So this is in Palestine. That looks ancient as can be. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
That looks really castle-like, you know?
Mm-hmm. Here's the Church of the Nativity in Palestine.
That one looks really old, like falling apart old.
Yeah. I bet you a lot of those, especially that one, I bet you that was put back together.
Yeah. I bet a bunch of them are like different based on
Look at that.
the weather. That looks like when they put a prison up and, away. That's amazing. Jeez,
That place didn't look like that when that was built.
Whoever sleeps in those rooms right there on the edge, you got some courage and guts that I don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for real.
Cliffside windows. I hope they don't have earthquakes there.
Is Armenia.
Wow.
Yeah, obviously, like the stones are so much bigger than the ones we use today.
Is there some melting in that one right there?
Kind of looked like it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That one looked like it got burnt, all black. Another one, Armenia.
It just needs a soft wash and all that organic matter will come off.
See Turkey. See if we can see any cool ones. But yeah, the 4th century, 5th century.
Antioch.
And then you get into Europe and it says, okay, some of these look, I guess it says it was the temple of Augustus in Livia and Vienna, France. The first stage was during the last quarter of the first century BC, reconstruction's first century before year. Okay, when it says, built in the first century as a temple to honor Augustus in Livia, it became a Christian church, probably at the beginning of the 6th century. Probably. Okay, that's real historical. After 1,200 years, as Saint Maria la Biela, it was converted into a temple of reason in 1792. A temple of reason? So right after Satan got let out, they said, we're going to make this a temple of reason instead of a temple to God. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about right there.
So these ones are all going to be like that Romanesque kind of.
Yeah. See, this is probably going to be the narrative here in Europe, because they're going to say that these basilicas used to be, because that's this exact same story they have with the Pantheon in Rome, that it was built supposedly, I think, in the like around 120 something or 140 something AD, but then it was converted to a church in the 300s. Yeah, here it is, right here. Okay, it says, this is one of my favorite buildings of all time, the Pantheon. And this thing it's still got the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the whole world. And they built this here. So the narrative says, former Roman temple, and since 1609, a Catholic church. So it was built in 125, and then it became a church in 609.
So none of these are all repurposed Christian churches. That's why. But the other
That's what they're going to tell.
fit.
That's what they're going to tell us. But what if they were always churches?
I mean, even if these these ones that we're seeing right here that have that Romanesque type stuff, like, I mean, they could have adapted some of these. Like that part could maybe be like part of a true story, but the ones above, obviously, we know that it doesn't make any sense that they were in those years. It obviously was earlier, and it seems like they flooded the scene so rapidly that I don't know. Satan had to stretch the timeline out to make this whole narrative work, so he obviously had to pick and choose just different things that would have to be compromised inside the narrative.
Yeah, so here's another one. The Cathedral of St. Dominus. And we're only seeing kind of part of it, but it says, built in 295 to 305 as the mausoleum of the Emperor Diocletian, and the second oldest structure used by any Christian cathedral. It was regarded as the oldest Catholic cathedral in the world that remains in use in its original structure without near complete renovation at a later date. So yeah, so it was built, again, it was built in the late 2nd century or the late 3rd century, and then it was repurposed as a Christian church in 641. It's kind of like again, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because like Constantine was supposedly in the 4th century, which that kind of lines up with, obviously, you have all these churches popping up. But why are these things being converted later, like 300 years later, to churches?
That's why the conversion makes sense with like the progression of the millennial reign, like things being taken over. And that's kind of wild just to think how literal those 1,000 years would have been here on Earth. Like, not some fantasy world, even though it kind of was like fantasy in a way, but because of the joy of it, but to actually see the things go around the world that were being like constructed and repurposed. Yeah,
so this is interesting, because this is Thessalonica. So if you guys have read 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, this is the church. This is where it is, Thessalonica, Greece. And it says, built as an imperial mausoleum or temple, currently a museum with the church access for various activities. So they're not even saying when this became a church. It was originally a mausoleum.
4th century? Is that what it's saying there on the right?
Yeah, but see, that's what people get confused, because the 1st century is 0 to 100. So the 2nd century is 100 to 200. 300 to 400 is the 4th century.
I'm just wondering if the 4th century, that third box, is that when it says?
Yeah, but I'm saying, but 306 is the 4th century. So they're really not even saying. But yes, that's interesting. So obviously there's a very famous church biblically there. And then there's one of the oldest churches in the world there. But of course, they didn't have any place to meet other than their houses, I guess, for the first 200 years of their church's existence. Baloney. Okay, so now we got to go into Santi Kazama e Dominio. I shouldn't even try to read that. Look at that.
That's a
Look at that
crazy
giant door.
That door is magnificent.
Yeah, and it's got, look at that patina on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Copper door and everything.
A copper door, yeah.
Yeah, and look at all these columns and stuff. What did this look like back in the day?
Man, if they tinned that door, that thing was looking like a marvel.
Yeah, that thing is incredible. So this one was built in 309, and it doesn't even say occupies the former space of the temple of Romulus in the Roman Forum. So that's the story of Romulus and Remus is one of the craziest mythologies. Is it what you had two twin sons and they were like raised by wolves? That's who founded Rome. That's a weird story.
That's a very weird story.
It's almost too weird to be made up totally.
Yeah, I wonder what the cryptic side reveals in that.
Okay, so this is the Archbasilica of Saint John Lateran. Lateran? Is that right?
Yeah, Lateran. Yeah, or Lateran, either way.
Look at that. That's a nice one.
Sixtus P. Benedictionis.
Yeah, you can never trust that kind of stuff like that.
I wonder if that M has been added. You know that? You see that right there towards the end?
I wouldn't doubt it if every bit of it was added.
Yeah, because it's
like
could be that way, yeah.
Like, do you think they stenciled that stuff on there when they built that thing?
The left one seems all pronounced in like new. The right one, do you see over there on the other building where it says Leo the 8th Anno? To the other building on the right there, you see that left one is super clean, and then if you go to the right, it says Leo up at the top.
Get back.
Leo the 8th or 13 Anno, and then that one looks like older. Maybe it's just the shadowing of it, but
yeah, it's my belief that they likely stenciled all that stuff on there later. And so that one is saying, again, it's oldest Christian church. Basilica was founded after the donation of Constantine the Great to Pope Melitius. I probably said this bad. Right after the Edict of Milan. Yeah, that's probably not how that's pronounced.
No.
Okay, here's another one. Greece. Paprika. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I wanted to say that. This one looks like it's been rebuilt. Like, you know, what's up with the construction method here? Like, where you got like real stones, then you got all these smaller bricks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it looks like this place had to be rebuilt. And so this one is saying, oh, look at that. Panagia. Also known as the Church of 100 Doors, is a historic Byzantine church complex. Okay, we got one in Cyprus.
Wow,
We might have to go through these fast now. Sorry, guys. I don't think we're going to get to the Pauline stuff yet. I think we're probably going to we can save that for next time.
We kind of like introed them really fast into this anyway, so it'd be kind of cool.
Look at that thing there, right there. That's okay. So this is St. Peter's Basilica. It was built in 333. It says the largest church in the world and the seat of the Roman Catholicism. The current church, 1635, is built on the site of the original basilica and the grave of St. Peter, who was martyred in Rome. The actual grave is visible in excavations under the church. The original floor and columns are visible in a space under the 17th century floor. BS, they didn't build that then.
That thing is incredible.
Yeah, that thing is so epic. And you know what it looks like? It looks like one of your state capitol buildings.
It does.
Gosh, if I could add Gunnar Heinsohn on my show, I'd have asked him. I said, well, Gunnar, what do you think about the strata level in America? And what do you think about all these buildings that are built in a Renaissance style? of the first century, or of 333 AD.
Man, seriously.
You know what I mean? Tell me that's
Look
not.
at
I mean,
that.
that rotunda and that dome and everything is what you see on. I want to say 90% of the state capitol buildings in America.
Yeah, that very cathedral-like top right there is just like the trademark of those buildings. Especially the one building where it's like it's the most common building you can find all around the world. It's that same top like that. And why is that building the most common with that top on there, like around the world and stuff like that? When you think about it, it's like a flat with a dome over it. I don't know. That just happened to pop up during that time. Just
Yeah,
coincidence.
like one of the most complicated, beautiful styles. It's just like, oh yeah, let's just do one of these.
All they do now is stadiums. That's the only dome. Me and Sarah were just talking about that on the drive home. And I was like, they do domes now, but they don't do anything with that crazy, like millions of pounds, above you. I guess it would be like the Atlanta Dome and a couple other the stadiums that they have and stuff like that with the Oculus up top.
Hmm.
But they don't make them like they used to anymore with the stone, though.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Now we're getting into Germany. So this is built the Cathedral of Trier. So it was built in 340, the oldest cathedral in Germany, and is still in use today. Its construction was overseen by Bishop Maximum of Trier. The construction of the grandest ensemble of ecclesiastical structures in the west outside of Rome. A few fourth century elements remain in the mainly Romanesque building. That's Romanesque?
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't strike me as Romanesque. That's more
Well, I guess what they're
cathedral
saying is
and
that there's some elements left. They probably built around some of this stuff.
I
But
guess the archways you could see like slight, but it seems like more what would they call that? Like contemporary or I don't know
I mean, I
the
don't know if that's like is that like
cathedral like, right?
yeah,
Or
it's kind of like more like a medieval castle
yeah,
style.
like it looks like the circus Walt Disney type building tips and stuff, That's kind of I forget what people say all those names and the eras and everything perfectly. I can never remember them, so
Yeah, we might have to. Okay, so this is obviously the Hagia Sophia, and this was built in what 360, and then what it says for almost 1,000 years, it was the largest church in Christendom, the main center of worship for the Eastern Orthodox Church, and the jewel of Constantinople. In 1550 or 1453, it was captured and converted into a mosque, becoming a museum in 1932 under Alaturk.
out
In
of to
Alaturk in July 2020, it was turned into a mosque again.
go to that one.
Whatever. What's that?
Click that. Oh yeah, right. Look
Yeah,
at that
the
thing.
Hagia Sophia. Yeah, it's like
That looks
incredible.
like that looks to me like a plasma reactor kind of like energy building or something. It looks like old industrial kind of Millennial Kingdom industrial building, like shooting out massive energy
I
for
should
the whole world or
I
something.
should find a picture of like what it looked like when me
Because
see it.
that's like kind of a blend of a mosque look, but it really looks like that one's because then you're getting into that area that is really controversial when we talk about the subject. When you talk about Byzantine and Eastern Western Roman, all the different things around that. And then what is Madeline talks about it like being over there and off the Asia coast, like that's where she thinks it is. So everybody's got their own different takes on it. This one to me is just that area. Constantinople is really a controversial part of this subject for sure. What are you looking up?
I was trying to find like at least an illustration of what it looked like before it
Oh,
was
okay.
turned converted into a mosque.
Right.
Yeah, they just throw some minarets up there and they say, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's a mosque now."
Yeah, right. You just painted them. They're probably it's all funny. It's gold. It's good.
Well, I think that might be an interesting thing. Oh gosh, you got to see the pictures of the inside of this thing. This thing is like incredible. But I think that's the one thing that maybe that's part of to try to throw us off the track is the fact that what if some of the Moorish style was not necessarily Muslim? You know what I
No, it's
mean?
I don't I think that whole
Because those minarets
generalization
could have been part of some antiquitech, as you said.
you can see that the Barbary, like even the pirates and everything, were recruited by the Ottoman Empire during a lot of those years and things like that. But I don't think they're one and the same. I think they definitely had their overlap with things they did together. But um, I think you get into the Moorish stuff, you just really go into the south. A lot of people tie them to the ancient Egyptians. But if you look at it, you can see it. St. Augustine, St. Petersburg, like those two places are pretty mind-blowing in Florida with all the this is crazy. You're making like I'm not even, I'm like talking all slow because I guess these are just captivating pictures. Wow.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh my goodness, man. That's something else.
Yeah, what do you like? What do the Muslims think? I know they do revere Jesus as Isa. What do they call him? Isa,
Yeah, the
and he's a
prophet.
prophet, and he's actually a prophet that's going to come back at the end times. So he is like they do revere him, unlike Judaism. We have to bring that up occasionally.
Yeah, I forgot this is the mosque. This is
Yeah, but I mean, but I think it's interesting that they still have all these giant iconography
murals
for
of all
Jesus
that.
in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally surrounding yourself with like Christianity, basically.
Yeah, and that's Jesus right there getting somebody bound down to his feet.
Yeah. Man, I wonder when that picture was. When was that picture taken?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's. I wonder. I would hope that these guys would not have desecrated some of this stuff.
So much of it. I mean, like we always kind of bring up, it would be awesome when we get to heaven if Abba's like, yes, you can go back through time and check out some of those things. Like go over there and be like, oh, remember that mosque, JT? Let's go check it out now. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the hard part to get in. Maybe we'll end it there because we I think we only got to we were at 38 of 146 churches. But I think that's kind of like that's kind of the more telling part, and that's kind of the part I want to like leave people with is that. So as Gunnar was saying that the Christians were without buildings for like the first 300 years, and then they start building them everywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You know what I mean?
Sense.
Wouldn't you expect kind of more like a little layered? I don't know, right? You know what I mean? Like
a progressive.
Right, like well, I mean, because we were showing churches in Africa, Asia, and Europe. See, the real crazy part is if they actually would admit it. Like, what are the earliest churches in like North America? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they built them in a Renaissance style of Rome. Maybe I could. Actually, before we leave,
do a tiny quick one. You can't.
I can go look down there and see where.
You got me teased over here right now. I want to see that right now before we go.
Yeah, maybe we'll skip down to the late Middle Ages. Yeah, we'll check out some of these ones later on the list. So this is Sweden. This is 1060. Look at that right there. Is that right by the Leaning Tower?
Man, that's amazing.
So that one says it was built on the foundations of an older church dedicated the Assumption of St. Mary. So here you get in some epic stuff. So this is Santiago de Compostela Cathedral in 1075. Look at that.
Goodness, that is. I don't know how they. I mean, did they? Even if you poured that as a mold, can you imagine making a mold like that if it really was?
It's kind of got that detail of almost like those Hindu temples.
It does.
You know, where they got so much like intricate stuff all over it.
Like the one that's underground, like built into that kind of chasm that is got like what they say is like machinery and stuff, and all. Some of
the thing about this is why this would be pretty impractical. You'd put so much detail at the top. You know what I mean? Like if it's just for aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it makes more sense that if it was built then the way it was built for a practical use. Okay, this says actually, according to tradition, the Apostle James, son of Zebedee, spread Christianity to the Iberian Peninsula in the year 44. He was beheaded in Jerusalem, and his remains were later transferred to Galatia in a stone boat. Okay, that's weird. And I didn't know they made boats out of stone. That seems kind of antithetical to sailing. But the King Alfonso II of Asturias ordered the construction of the chapel in the 1810s in the place. This chapel was followed by a first church in 829, and later by pre-Romanesque church on 899, gradually becoming an important place of pilgrimage In 997, this primitive church was reduced to ashes by Alamazor, commander of the army of the Caliphate of Cordoba. The construction of the current cathedral in the same place was built between 1075 and 1122 under the reign of Alfonso VI of Leon and Castile. The Baroque facade of the Obradoria was made in 1740, and also the Baroque in whatever. That's enough reading that, but yeah, that's a lot going on with that epic cathedral. Oh, here's another one in Istanbul. So this would be modern day Istanbul. This is Constantinople.
Constantinople.
So this would have been one of the most famous Byzantine churches in Istanbul, Turkey, and was the last pre-Ottoman building to house the ecumenical patriarch. How do you say it?
Patriarchate.
Yeah, okay. Converted in 1591 to a mosque. Such a shame. But yeah, like you're seeing these things. So the Hagia Sophia was built in the 300s, and then these things are built. Like how much different is this style? Like that.
You know,
it's obviously way less impressive.
Newer, but they don't look like one is ancient and one is modern.
This crap was all built at the same time, I bet.
Yeah, or very close together.
Okay, let's continue to scroll down. We'll see if we can find anything in North America. And so they don't even, I guess they don't even show any of the North American churches. Here's Bulgaria. Just the last one on the list. The second to last one. But this one was built like 400 years later, and it's still similar to all the other ones. Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't believe any of this story, but I think it's interesting, yeah, that these churches, again, they kind of, if you probably went more detailed, and I'll post the link if you guys want to check this out, or otherwise you can just do a web search for oldest churches in the world, and you'll find that wiki page. But do some more research. I encourage everybody else to kind of do this, because we're just scratching the surface of this topic. But I think that from the old world, the Tatarian perspective, the buildings are some of our biggest clues, and I think that's why we enjoyed Gunner's work so much, because it's talking about the strata level. It's talking about where these buildings are built. And I would have loved, again, I guess shouldn't be worry about what could have been. But I'd love to ask him about some of these other buildings that were supposedly built in the 1400s and late 1000 AD, second millennia AD, and they still all resemble the same kind of churches. See, that's the thing. You can't really, like, depending on the kind of church, you really can't tell when it was built.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody has a clue. Because if you had a dark age where architecture, language, and culture did not advance for 1,000 years, it's really hard to actually pinpoint when stuff was built versus like today when you could.
Yeah, they have to stretch that first 1,000 out. Otherwise, the next 1,000 and everything they try and pin on that dark age and stuff wouldn't make any sense then, because you would be saying, like, collectively, this 2,000 years, like, humans just went into a black hole of abyss and did nothing and just, full on, like, by definition, went, like, retarded and just they stopped using their brain, or it just stopped, functioning in the right way. It doesn't make any sense. If there was, like, other identifying times like that in history that you could see, maybe that would be one thing, but humans have never shown anything except for trying to improve on things and be smarter and more intelligent and more practical, more economic, more efficient, stronger, better, like all those things. You don't say the opposite. It wouldn't make any sense for it, especially for that amount of time. It would signal like what? Like massive deficiency and like famine, and you know what I mean? Like maybe if everybody was on the brink of starvation and death.
Maybe if an apocalypse happened.
Yeah. Maybe you could say that.
You could have the sun go dark for 18 months. You could have a plague. You could have wars and famines, and then you could maybe explain why they went backwards. But otherwise, doesn't this kind of even bunk the narrative? Because if the Romans were super advanced, which we acknowledge they were, then we're told that during the Dark Ages, they regressed and they did not know how to do some of the things the Romans did. But yet they built basilicas in a Renaissance style all the way up to like the end of the millennia,
Right.
and a Renaissance style of the things they built in the first century. So how does that make sense that they actually didn't know what the Romans did? Because clearly they could construct buildings like they did.
And the roof tiles is the one for me that's like, there's certain parts of it that are crazy, like the oil being the same when they check the paintings, and it's like 700 years apart, and it's the same exact oil. And he's like, how? He said, who back then is preserving oil like this for that long? And besides it, it's the tiles. Why? He's like, why would they ever repurpose tiles? He's like, who would take a 300 or a 700 or whatever year old tile and say, I'm going to use this for my nice house that I'm constructing, like brand new, and just wouldn't.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. What Josh is referring to, Gunnar goes on to talk about more architecture. Of course, we could have showed more of it. But what he's saying is that when they constructed things at a Renaissance style, sometimes they were saying they were taking old building materials from other buildings and using them. And he was saying they were taking their roof tiles to also use for their roofs, which that's something you would not do. Because obviously people know water damage, your roof's very important. So
sun,
at some point,
like
you're going to
all
use
that.
something very practical. You would say that, oh, yes, these roof tiles are beautiful, but they might not be water resistant because they're like 1,000 years old. I mean, but interesting. So in my, back in my construction days, what we have done is we worked on some buildings in downtown Norfolk and some older historical buildings, and the government was given the builders or the general contractors historical money to go toward fixing things. Well, eventually you can't save but so much. So what you end up doing is like you save trim, you save like detailed stuff, and you're trying to preserve the aesthetics, but eventually you can't use everything. So we're talking about buildings that we're told are like 100 years old. And you're going to tell me that in the first millennium AD, they went and used building materials that are like 500 to 600 years old to rebuild a complete building with it.
No chance. No chance.
Would
And
not work.
especially because you look at some of these places, you think like some bum built that. Like it wasn't some guy in the slums who had a house like that. So why would they be like, oh, honey, I'm going to build you your dream home, but I really like this vintage look, and I think it's most effective when we do it with tiles that are 700 years old. It just doesn't make sense. Like you said, you would have all the weathering, right? Like all the elements that would break it down. It could make it more porous. Water could go through. Like who knows? Like all the different things that the sun, the air, and the water like do. We know it absolutely destroys stuff. Anyways, like the whole narrative when it comes to that. I mean, everything that Gunnar talks about is to go into the kind of like removing the impossibilities. And that's why I like him so much, because he puts you in the realm of impossible, where you look at stuff and he's like, you tell me how. It's impossible. And then in some of it, he's so humble in the way he approaches it, but you could tell like in the back, it seems like he's like, no, it's impossible. And I'm saying, like, I'm definitively saying that.
I like how he's got that German mind who's just like, this does not make any sense. So like the Germans had a very orderly thought process, and they're like, it is kind of like Occam's razor. What's the most likely scenario here? That they built everything like they did 1,000 years ago at the same strata level, and there's no evidence of anything older under those buildings, or they were all built at the same time and the chronology is wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely the most.
That's
the
what,
latter.
and that's basically his conclusion. Is like it doesn't. There's too many other like leaps you have to make. Again, they built. Again, the thing is, like, why would they build things in a pagan basilica style? Like most often, when they're Christians, you know what you're gonna. It's kind of like it'd be like today if we decided to build a church in America and we say, hey, let's build it like a mosque.
Yeah, make no sense.
Right. We wouldn't do that because that would be like that. There's an association of what that building looks like. So you wouldn't build a temple to worship our God in a temple that resembled something that was once used to worship Zeus.
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't build like a Hindu looking temple to worship Shiva if we were going to worship the one true God. So maybe in the same way that could it be that some of these other temples, they later added some of this other iconography to them, and they were originally churches?
I think it's got to be that.
You know what I mean? That would seem like more likely, is that because they still build statues of Zeus and everything now.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Just
saying. Like, there's all those things that are still around to compare them to, and it doesn't. The only ones out of everything that you showed there that possibly could have had some kind of truth about what they were saying is that handful of Roman looking ones that were saying that they converted them to churches. Maybe those during that time frame were like the only ones that they converted. I don't think the years are correct. You know what I mean? Maybe it was still at the same time as the other ones. But it just makes more sense that like those were the ones that maybe could have been converted because they look like some of those old ones from the occult type side and stuff like that.
yeah, could be, could be. Yeah, it's not like you would demo that whole building if you're Constantine.
Yeah,
probably
and it's
really,
just like
probably
I
really
mean, some
difficult to
people
demo.
would.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably really difficult to demo it.
Maybe there was like some sacrificial altars and stuff they obviously got rid of or things like that. But it just makes more sense that they would have, and again, I still don't agree that the years are right on the 600 or whatever. I feel like you should back the years up a bunch and put them around the same time where there's this conquest going on, as well as this rehabilitation of the earth and this reconstruction of the earth, which just more so proves to it. I mean, you look around the world, we know it's like we're preaching to the choir with the subject now that the buildings are everywhere. But it makes sense now we're talking about the actual details on how this formed and came about, and it doesn't make sense that there would have been this like randomized progression when we know that we're talking about millennial kingdom type stuff here. It would have been a force to be reckoned with that would have just surged out through the whole earth, and it makes sense with the construction of the buildings, all the paintings and stuff that Sister Madeline had, that girl that was on there that was going through the different things like that. So I started looking at them going like, wow, I'll be darned. This girl was telling the truth. Like, the pictures aren't just of the saints all over the world. There seem to be a lot of them are the same exact picture.
Right.
Like,
That's what I was saying. I remember that was one of my first kind of conclusions. I think when I watched the Lost History of Flat Earth and I discovered the little season, I was like, today the saints are being prayed to, and I don't think that was ever something that God ever intended. But is that something that got lost over time? Where it's like they were depicting them with halos, not because they were gods, but because they were in glorified bodies. And if there was some kind of interaction between the saints when they were resurrected with people, is that why that they always look the same?
Yeah, I used to
Right?
think it was the pagan sundress around their head when I was in the Torah community, because I was very anti-Christianity, very everything like that. And even though I don't like people get on to titles and everything like that, it's just like I believe in the whole Bible. I don't care what you call me or what you associate me with. Like, but there's definitely ties to this that go back, and people just want to disassociate it and throw it out because they have, some beliefs that they've come into currently. But I used to think like, oh man, they got it's all pagan, this, that, like that's why they have the headdresses around them and all the Roman Catholics are trying to, but now when you're looking into it like this, there's a lot more of an innocence and a function behind it. And it seems like, I don't know if they're going around traveling and everything and they're like sitting there like depicting them and doing it like that. But plus too, you wonder if that whole like breakaway of the continents, if they were still together during like the millennial kingdom, and then after, like at the end of it, if there was a fracturing that like split it apart.
Something definitely could happen. It could have been happened when all that stuff went down. But yeah, that's the thing too, because I think people, when they think of this kind of style, they think of Rome. They think of the Roman Catholics. But then you see these churches are everywhere though. They're in Africa, they're in Asia, they're in Europe, and they're all depicting similar things. It's kind of like if you go up to like St. Petersburg in Russia, and you go look at what their churches look like on the insides, and they're depicting the same kind of things that you would have had in the Hagia Sophia. Like almost identical, like the way they're painted.
And St. Petersburg, Florida resembles everything in St. Petersburg,
all
Russia.
these places all over the whole world, they're kind of depicting them the same way. And you could say it's just because the Catholics and, Christopher Columbus and the Spanish, and they went everywhere and they started building Catholic churches. But maybe this was like a worldwide thing. And maybe the reason they do look so similar is because that's what people saw them and that's what they resembled. I think that's exactly the same thing. And this is the tease for next week, and we're going to have to close it out here. But Gunnar was talking about the Apostle Paul and how Paul's depicted in a certain way, but Paul's never mentioned in Europe in early antiquity and mid antiquity. It's not till late antiquity he's mentioned. And when you see this, they see iconography of him, he looks like what he's described as looking like.
Yep.
Because that's what he looked like.
Yeah, for sure.
So some people always say like, oh, that's not what Jesus looked like. It's like, but it is interesting, like that. Wouldn't those people have a better idea what he looked like compared to us?
Yeah, seriously.
You know what I mean? Like, why? It's the exact same argument I would always make when we would talk about ancient aliens. They would be like, these people wouldn't know what aliens were. They're too primitive. And like, but you're saying they interacted with them.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, wouldn't they know more about them than you do? So I think that's the thing. You always have to, like, in this research, the more you kind of understand that man was not primitive, man was not stupid. Just look at his buildings. Those buildings are not primitive. Those things are super advanced. We don't even know how they did them. So if they, painted a mural depicting some of these saints, well, they probably got a better idea what they look like than you do. So have a little humility about like saying, oh, I know what this whole story is. This story is complex, it's broken, and we are just trying to put the pieces together. But I think that as we continue, maybe we can, we'll maybe focus on Paul next week, and then we can I can tease some of the other stuff we're going to dig into. Well, anyways, guys, I really hope you guys appreciate this episode. And if you did, please check out our sponsor, Modern Roots Life, link in the description. And once again, if you guys want us to focus on anything in the future, please let us know in the comment section. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate you guys. Love y'all. God bless.
Thanks, guys. Love you guys.